We be live.
Let the blasphemy begin, folks.
Oh, that's my new favorite.
Okay. That's a new favorite. All right.
That's my new favorite.
All right. That's good. That's not bad. I'm doing good. Okay. That's pretty good.
That's good.
Oh,
We
hang
have
on.
an
That's
alarm?
me. That's me. We were technically, look, folks, that was my alarm for exactly 10 o'clock. And we were here early, meaning we're doing you a favor. So go ahead and like the video already, because you're getting even more content this time. That's how
10 seconds of extra content.
There's a lot. We've packed a lot of entertainment in here in these 10 seconds.
All right. Well, yeah, guys, actually do like the video. We seriously appreciate that. That would really help. But yeah, I have my alarm 5 minutes before the show. That's fine.
Oh, see, well, that's because...
what's the point of an alarm right on the time of the show?
Oh, no point. Not really anything at all. Yeah. It's just I just put it on the calendar, and it's like, hey, just remember that you're doing this thing on the Wednesdays at this time, and it's like, oh, great, and then it just like starts playing and stuff. I actually have some more fun. That ringtone isn't as fun as some of the other ones. One of them sounds like a carnival, and it's really nice. It's like, bah, 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 bah. Anyway, it's very happy. It gets me excited for whatever it is that I have to do.
Wait, don't sing that. You're gonna get a copyright.
Oh yeah, I think that one's in the public domain. That's like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
Wait, okay. I don't know. Happy birthday could get you.
Man, yeah, that was a weird thing. Honestly, yeah. I actually went to court. There was a federal court decision. Hey.
We got a new member, Unique Polyglot. So, guys, by the way, the way this works is that we're going to answer questions in the live chat, Patreon questions. So, if you want to become a patron on Patreon, link in the description. We have 11 questions today. And YouTube members, just like a new YouTube member that we have, what they can do is after we go through the Patreon questions, we post a link on our community tab, on the YouTube community tab, for our members only, so nobody could see it except our members, and they could click on the link and they could come up here and talk to us and ask any questions that they might have. Okay, but so again, if you're a patron, that means you could post your questions like this ahead of time and we'll answer them. And if you're a YouTube member, that means you could come up and talk to us live on it. If anybody is interested today in coming up. All right, let's get to the Patreon questions. D is asking your thoughts on the article below, and I will show you the article. You have it. Okay. Your thoughts on this article. How are 600 plus hours of gun training in an environment full of children irrelevant? Wait, I don't understand what is irrelevant. Let's read this.
Yeah.
Ohio governor signs bill making it easier for teachers to have guns in schools. The new law reduces the amount of training required for teachers to carry fire. What the hell? Yeah. Carry firearms in schools from 700 hours to less than 24 hours. Why? Should I read the rest, or is that like me just?
I mean, there is a little bit, because I just right before I read through this, there is a little bit more, but at the same time, no, honestly, right there kind of fucking encapsulates it, man. I mean, seriously, that's I don't know how you justify that, but
let's read. So let me. Okay, I hate the fact that they keep repeating art. Why do art writers do that? Okay, like the measure directly reduces the amount of training teachers and yeah, we know it was in the goddamn title. Get to the point. What is the argument from the other side? Like, all right, let's read this part. I think this is argument. Our goal is to continue to help our public and private schools get the tools they need to protect our children. Well, I mean, the tools they need will, even if the guns help, the tools they need would be the training.
I mean, I mean, I think you're onto something there, Armin. But
we have an obligation to do everything we can every single day to try and protect our kids. Well, how about training the people who are holding guns? That would be.
We have an obligation to do everything except training the people to actually use the firearms. Yeah. So
these are like killing machines. Yeah. 24 hours is not good enough. Guys, like cars that are not designed to kill people. Yeah. You need a lot more training than 24. You don't give a driver's license to somebody after 24 hours of training. Yeah. Why would you give them a killing machine? I don't understand.
I don't understand the desire. There is a group of people in this world that have a desire to just like radically lower the bar for people to be actually like experts in things. And I don't understand that. Why would we want to do that? Like, would you want to hop on an airplane where the pilot's like, hey, thank you all so much. I'm going to be your pilot today. I started with one of those new programs that only requires like 2 weeks of like simulator training. First time actually flying a plane. No, you want people to be trained. But yeah, this is where it claims the 600 plus hours of gun safety training is irrelevant. So
this is the quote, the irrelevant part where D was referring to. My office worked with the General Assembly to remove hundreds of hours of curriculum irrelevant to school safety. Wow.
yeah.
And to ensure training requirements were specific to a school environment and contain significant scenario-based training, he said. The new law, which comes just weeks after the massacre at an elementary school in, how do you pronounce the city? I don't know. Uvalde, Texas, calls for 8 hours of pre-qualification training every year, as well as training every year, as well as training on stopping an active shooter, de-escalation technique, and first aid care. Yeah. Okay, we have some counter arguments in the live chat to what I said, saying Shreyash is saying cars are a lot heavier and harder to handle.
Guns are designed to kill. I don't understand. I don't understand. Like, I mean, cars aren't designed to like to kill. They're not designed to like cause death. But like that is what a gun is for. It is a tool, but it's a tool to do that. Like, let's not pretend. Like even my friends that are super pro gun and go hunting all the time and stuff, like they're very well trained on it because they understand what this tool is. It's yes, you can kill people with a hammer, but a hammer is designed to do other things. A gun is designed to kill people. I don't think that's crazy to say.
So I think what people don't understand, like it's something looks simple, like you aim, you shoot. These are the, I'm good to go. But the reason why you need a lot of hours is for the safety procedures to become second nature. Like, so the safety measures that for you to be something that you have such a strong habit that you do it without even thinking about it. You know what I mean? So. Right. People that I've been to shooting range. Like people that are like beginners, like sometimes they don't understand that after you're shooting. Like I had people that were actually a little bit more experienced, but even they were shouted at in the shooting range because they weren't pointing their gun upwards while they were not shooting, even though the guy had the safety on. Like they were like, this is like so because. After you have to go through a lot of hours of like handling the things to just like without putting much thought, to put the safety on, put the gun this way, like make sure when it comes to storage, when it comes to things, like I don't know. I mean, I'm not a gun person, so I don't know the details, but I understand that there's a lot to get. It takes very little for you to make a mistake that could be devastating, even though it looks simple. It just takes a very stupid, mistake that we all make in a split second that all of a sudden someone's brain is just all over the floor, right?
Yep.
So that's why you need a lot of hours of going through these things so that your mind is completely,
And I think it's fair for somebody to come back and say, yeah, but is 743 hours and 15 minutes and 7 seconds the exact time? Like, is that too much? Yeah, okay, maybe. I mean, yeah, maybe. Like maybe 700 hours is too much hours. Like maybe we should cut it down to 650 or 300 or maybe we can have that talk for sure. I don't think that's unreasonable to say that maybe we're requiring a little bit more training than is actually necessary. For me personally, I would probably always land on the side where it's like, well, yeah, let's have more training than necessary so that people are properly fucking trained. I love that in everything, but I understand and respect that argument of, hey, maybe this is too much time and we could shave off a little bit. But I would very much disagree that 24 hours is
Right.
that is
Yeah,
way too low.
maybe like, okay, so if somebody wants to make an argument like, oh, this is like good for safety and this is just too much barrier for people to get into, get their guns, which I mean, I don't know, we could appeal to experts for that, whether this is helpful or not. But I'm pretty sure that right answer, if it's below 700 hours, it's not 24 hours.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you there, man. Yeah.
Asian American is saying, well, is this where my taxpayer dollars are going? What the F?
Yes.
Does guns have here means toy guns? No.
Oh, no.
So Sophie is saying, I'm a pretty new subscriber to Atheist Republic, and I love Armin and Susanna's passion. Well, you should stay on and see Secular Rarity. Like, his passion is also.
I also get passionate.
Yeah, you get.
And Susanna and I, not only is our passion similar, but so is our hair. So I mean, that's a 2 for 2 right there.
We have had a lot of people that haven't even noticed that Susanna is not here.
To be honest, I absolutely take that as a victory. I mean, I just if somebody has been watching these with me and only now is like, oh my gosh, this is a different person, I feel really good about that inside. So
Asian American is saying there are hours of muscle. You mean hundreds of hours? Yeah, there are hundreds of hours of muscle memory that goes into this. Yes, Asian American. Also, we keep getting invited to Islam every week by Bucha. Would you become a Muslim? Maybe. I don't know. Do you have any good arguments? We're open to it. I'm open to it.
I'm not like categorically against it. I would say, from what I understand right now, no.
Based on what we understand.
You know, I mean, could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Would you convert, deconvert from Islam? That's a question to you.
Oh, would I?
No, that her ask her.
Oh, yeah, that is a good question. Yeah, would you? Are you willing? Do you have that openness to potentially deconvert? That's a tough question.
Okay, next question. Asian American is asking, the USSR and PRC, so the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China, both transitioned from communism to capitalism. Russia, however, suffered from shorter life expectancies, drug abuse, and alcoholism as compared to PRC, you mean? Because as compared to to USSR, as compared to before. What do you think Deng did right, but Yeltsin the drunk did wrong? Okay, so me, I had my own thoughts about this, but me and Secular Rarity also, because of this question, went on watched some commie cover this, because some anti-capitalist commie cover this. So we did a review on this to see what we think. I mean, before I watched that video, my main answer would be corruption. Okay, there seemed to have been, and there's a difference between state corruption and just corruption. So even though in China we do have corruption, there's some organization, there's some pattern, there is some understanding to the chaos. It's not just randomized chaos, it's organized chaos. So there's systematic ways of understanding this is how things work, right? But the corruption that Russia experienced after the fall of USSR was like chaotic, and the chaotic nature of that makes it difficult for you to do business. I mean, even if you have corruption, if people understand exactly how things are supposed to work, and everybody has, again, I'm not in favor of corruption. That's still, China would do a lot better if they didn't have state corruption, right? But free market corruption is usually more devastated than a very controlled state corruption. But also, based on the video we watched, another good answer to this question would be the fact that they try to speed right through it. Okay. And one thing that capitalism needs, here's a problem that a lot of people don't understand, because a lot of pro-capitalist people don't understand. A lot of people who are dogmatically capitalist, they just are against any form of structure or regulation that comes from the government. They think that they have to just say no to any form of structure or anything that could inhibit growth. Just let it loose, just like let the whole thing do its thing, and that will get the best results, right? But that's not how capitalism works. Capitalism requires a lot of capitalist people have had very bad experiences with government regulation, that they're not dogmatically against our form of regulation, right? But for capitalism to be able to do its thing, you need to create a structure, you need to create a base, you need to create an environment where competition and the free market can grow in a healthy way, or else it's just gonna and that's not what happened after the USSR collapsed. They just went on full on, just deregulate everything and just let all corruption and all form of it basically turn into crony capitalism instead of actually healthy regulated capitalism. What do you think?
Yeah, and it was designed that way, and I think that was the whole point. Was like, what did they do? Like, what did Yeltsin do wrong, quote unquote? I don't think he did anything wrong. I think he knew exactly what he was doing, and he was instituting a form of an economic system that would ultimately result in what it is today. I don't think that there were any doubts about that, right? So yeah, I mean, I think it was just the specific implementation and the actual goals of it, and the goals of it for the USSR transitioning into Russia was one where, yeah, it would ultimately lead to, the oligarchy that exists today. So I think that's a pretty fair understanding. So
yeah, I mean, the main role, one of the main roles of the government in a free market economy is to crush any form of corruption, right? That exists, for people to have some form of faith in the system. So that if you have your trust in the system, that if we play fairly and if we compete fairly, we will come on top. But so that healthy competition grows, right? And you need that anti-corruption measures to be very, very strong, okay, and heavy-handed. But this was exactly the opposite of what the Soviet Union did. Not only they weren't fighting corruption, they were openly allowing it.
Yeah, they were very happy for it.
Yeah, because they were like, their philosophy was like, because we're speed running through this is like a shock therapy measure that we are using to go from communism to capitalism. We should let these corrupt people just do whatever they want. It will eventually the invisible hand of the market will eventually figure this out, right? But the invisible hand of the market is not gonna fight corruption. Like you're putting too much faith in the invisible hand of the market. The invisible hand of the market is good for figuring out what is this price should be, what is the supply should be, how much demand there is for this. Okay, it's not gonna go and put the invisible hand of the market is not going to go arrest people and put them in jail.
It's not going to stop a company from making false claims about their new diet pills or whatever. Yeah, it's not, the invisible hand isn't going to fucking help with that at all. But yeah, I mean, exactly that. It wasn't designed to be something that was actually more consumer focused. And again, this video ended up going a couple of different routes that neither of us really agreed with at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't the fact that it was like quote unquote capitalism. It was the fact that this particular implementation was specifically using the guise of capitalist markets around the world to create a structure where there was a super well-off elite class that controlled everything and fucked everybody else. I mean, it was specifically focused on that. I mean, you can do that with any system. You can do that with any fucking system. And if you're just actively trying to screw everybody over, I mean, yeah, it's going to be bad. I think that makes sense. So,
yeah. Oxymoron is saying maybe China had functioning economy and Russia didn't.
They were both in similar places. I mean, huge amount of individuals that were doing agricultural things. Their parents and their parents' parents had been doing that, and under these particular people, they started engaging in a lot more higher end, production things, and really raise their status of living.
Both Mao and Stalin kind of like destroyed the economy and killed millions of people because of it. So they won't. Yeah.
So I don't know. They were. I mean, they're not perfect analogies for each other, for sure. Nothing is, but I don't think they're that far off.
All right. One answer I read was so Shreyash is saying one answer I read was that since China was commie shorter than Russia, the society at large will still had a memory and understanding of business that Russians lost. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting. Like anthropological, sociological lens. I don't know how true it is, because I doubt. I don't think
people will forget.
Yeah, I don't think people forget like that quote unquote general sense of business.
Marcus,
yeah,
like so. Give me money, I give you.
I have 2 apples. You have 1 pear. Fair? Not fair? What? So I don't know. I feel like
no, maybe. I know. We have to look into it. Very important comment. Secular Rarity, nice hair. I mean, what about my hair? What the hell? Well, does it have to be long? Okay.
It does.
Sure.
It has to be long and flowing. Get the little wind through it. No, but thank you.
All right. Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah, you're right. Maybe Shreyash. We don't know. Okay. Let's look at the next question. Cajun American is asking, Russia is now backing out of the grain deal that can impact Middle East and North African countries. MENA, Middle East and North Africa countries. How do you think this will impact Iranian protests? I don't know how it will impact Iranian protests, but this could starve a whole bunch of people. Yeah. This is like Russia using people's starvation, food as a weapon. Like imagine the moral implication. This is what this is what the KSA, the Saudi Arabia did in Yemen, using actively trying to starve people as a weapon of war. Russia is like holding the whole world hostage over food.
I thought we agreed that stuff like that on an international level were like war crimes and stuff. I thought we agreed that those were against human rights, and I thought we agreed on that, but maybe I'm confused. But yeah, I mean, my first thought was that exactly, that it's gonna cause a lot of people to fucking starve, and that's disgusting. Yeah. I don't know if that leads to more activity in Iran from the average person protesting, because they just at this point literally have nothing. Even the fucking bread is gone. I don't know if
be careful with the F words.
Oh, sorry. But I don't know. I don't know if they come out in full force because of that, right? Because there's nothing left, or if it weakens the protests because people aren't able to supply basic needs. So I don't know how it goes on that, but that was where my head went at first. So
yeah, and now that I think about it, the effect on the Iranian protests could be indirectly multiple degrees of separation here. Okay, there is the more anti-Russia the world becomes, the more people who are siding with Russia would be under pressure, right? So one thing that is helping the protesters is the fact that the Iranian regime is helping Russia with drones, right? And it makes it easier for Europe now to take an anti-Iranian government stance. So, and the Iranian protesters love that, because Europe has been very far behind in taking Iranian government position compared to United States and Canada, right? And a lot of people Iranian protesters were annoyed by how much the Iranian government relies on its economic trade with Europe. Like it's become a lifeline for them because of how suffocating the sanctions are. the fact that Europe, especially Germany as a leader, was very conservative about how harsh they were, and like how aggressive they were in pushing back against the Iranian government. That was like the very small breathing room that the Iranian regime has had, right?
Sure.
And now that breathing room is closing. Like Germany, is taking a very aggressive, like unbelievably aggressive, like because we have been very much used to like United States being very tough, Canada being very tough on Iran, and Germany and some other European countries, especially Germany, being like a little bit like, yeah, but maybe no, like we need like maintaining good relationships with the government. So, and they were always like holding back. And now all of a sudden there's a 180 on that, and they're like, holy crap, like what the, like they're like turned into like a very aggressive, and they keep citing the protests. They keep like talking about the Iranian people and the reason they having to defend them and stuff like that. And some people are saying that because of the recent protests in Berlin, where 80 to 100,000 people showed up, might have had an effect. A lot of people are also saying it's also maybe because of the fact that they're selling now. Iran is taking a very heavy pro-Russia stand. And now, so basically, what I'm imagining is that Russia doing more evil things. I mean, not Russia, like let's say Putin, doing more evil things makes them more hated globally. Will make it easier to also be tougher on Russia's allies. So maybe
I think that's a good thought too. Honestly, my head didn't even go there, and I think that's a really important. Yeah, what will the geopolitical fallout from this be? So.
Right.
Again, I think, exactly what you said right at the beginning, though, is something we shouldn't forget, which is a lot of people are going to starve from this. It's a pretty disgusting thing. So,
yeah. Hopefully, Ukraine will invade Russia and free the Russian people.
Armin's views and statements do not necessarily represent.
No. I was kidding. I get a compliment as well. Look at this. But I don't understand the compliment, but I appreciate it anyways. So, Armin, I love your hair. Hairs. What? Can you read this for me?
I love your hair. Slay with your Anashirawan realness. That's where I've lost this.
Here, I understand this one more.
Oh.
Armin's hair looks like ramen. Thank you. Something. Is that a compliment?
I would say I will take it as a compliment. Ramen is very highly respected in a lot of the world. So
yes. Yeah. People like ramen. So.
Yeah. There are some people that would think that it's for cheap, broke college students. But I would argue that it is actually a very classy dish. So I think what they're saying is your hair is classy. That's what I'm
I'll take that. What is this question? I don't know if I could.
Oh yeah, I think I understand this, but it takes a second to. So yeah, go ahead, man.
Okay. SHIT pills are now a growing trend in treating gut health, gut microbiomes imbalance, and gut health and gut microbiomes imbalance. Should India allocate funding to better understand Agori's
coprophagia
habits?
It means poop eating.
Poop eating. Or are taxpayer dollars better spent elsewhere? I think it's elsewhere.
So let me address a couple of parts of it. So, the gut health stuff, when it comes to like what we're understanding about the microbiome and stuff, it apparently is the case that inside of every single one of our tummies is all this fungus, virus, bacteria, all this shit that just piles up. And
hey, SHIT.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We need a swear jar, and I will just start putting money into it. I will remember. I swear. So poop is one of the most easiest ways to tell whether or not your gut biome is healthy or not, because, you know, you poop and then we look at it and then we can look at the microbes and stuff. And we've got a lot of really good data that are showing certain bacteria are really bad for you. They can cause colon cancer and all these other terrible problems that none of us like. And then there are other bacteria that can make better things happen with your tummy and your health. So from my understanding, though, oral ingestion of these types of bacteria is not the most effective route. The most effective route for doing something like that would be called a fecal matter transplant, which is exactly what you think it is, which is they clean out all the poop inside you, then they take a healthy person's poop and they put it inside you. All done in a medical facility, all clean. Do not try to do this stuff at home. Also, don't eat poop. It's not good. It's not good for you. All the information that we have really does indicate that it is not good for you. So don't do it. Oh, please. I think you're muted.
Okay, we can look at the science.
Yes,
what
please.
happens when you eat poop?
Thank you.
Okay. Examples of bacteria commonly present in poop include E. coli, so that's enough not to read it. These bacteria can cause you to experience symptoms such as nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, and fever. Okay, let me. What the hell?
Oh yeah,
Read that.
That's
okay,
where
let's go just to the bottom line.
Fecal transplant.
The bottom line. Oh yeah. While eating poop shouldn't usually cause severe symptoms, there are some instances when immediate medical attention is needed. See a doctor if you or a loved one experience these symptoms. Okay, so basically, no. I would say no.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I guess if you like accidentally slip and you eat a little bit of poop, like you're probably not gonna die, you know. Like, it's probably gonna be okay.
Don't do that, guys.
But yes, in general, this is definitely not something.
By the way, for people, should we tell people what the Agoris are? It's like a religion.
Please do.
Okay, so Agoris is like a sect in Hinduism, and they eat poop.
They do, and sometimes people, right? Like
dead people, yes.
Dead people. Not
so,
which I guess that's better. That is better, right? That is better.
Depends on how fresh it is.
I guess.
Okay.
Oh jeez. Okay.
So their understanding. So basically, we're wondering if maybe like you know how it's like sometimes religious people, when they're made fun of, and then science comes out and they like, see, you made fun of us, but science is now proving us that we were the right ones, and cow urine is good for you, or as Muslims would say, camel urine is good for you, or something like that, or like, oh, you said like praying is good for your back because it's like yoga, like, see, like we were right. This shows that the Islam is a miracle, right? But the Agoris are like a sect in Hinduism where they do things that is associated with the outcast as a way to humble themselves, I guess, like breathe, like to show the opposite of like basically is the opposite of looking at upper caste things as holy, right? These people think the holier, like see holiness in going the other direction, and the outcasts are usually seen as dirty and the only people or lower caste even worthy of touching feces and cleaning toilets or carrying dead people or basically taking care of so other people, especially upper caste people, should not be touching that stuff because they're holy and those things are disgusting. And these people say just actively pursue not just touching these things but eating them, like garbage, poop, and dead people, and they usually have a skull with them to remind themselves, like, we had
it's like
we went through a documentary, but
it's like purity culture to the opposite extreme. Like instead of being so consumed with being holy and pure, you're consumed with being as filthy and irreligious and whatnot. It's very interesting. I mean, like it is actually like interesting, the actual like thought behind it and stuff. But I think in practice, I just want to reiterate, And I'll say it as many times as I need to. Don't eat poop.
Don't eat poop. You heard it.
Great
here.
message. Yeah, if you didn't know it already. Oh, geez.
Shuva just arrived.
Look, it happens to the best of us, Shuvo. Like, I get it. You know, we've all been there.
He arrived in the middle of this discussion on the stream. It was like, man, I turned at the right time. I turned in at the right time.
We aimed.
Well done, lads. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a question. We're answering Patreon questions.
That's right.
Okay. Oxymoron is asking, or stating, France, despite recognizing small religions like Sikhism, refuses to officially acknowledge Hinduism as a religion. Really? But assures protection of Hindu rights as much as any others. Should French Hindus, I think you mean, take this as a compliment, or they should feel humiliated for their incompetence?
I'm honestly, I'm still kind of taken aback that the French government does not recognize Hinduism as a religion. I really am.
True?
I'm taken aback by that. I mean, if they really don't, then I would love to know. I would love to know what their argument is. Maybe it's just like, there's just too much Hindu. There's just, so disparate we can't classify it. But that still seems kind of BS, right? It still seems like a BS argument.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of Hindus don't recognize.
Well, right. I mean,
religion, so.
Yeah. But I have Christians that say that type of crap to me all the time. They say, "Oh no, I'm not. I'm not a Protestant. SR, I'm not a Protestant. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ." And I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds like you're like frickin' Presbyterian."
Like
exactly.
Sounds very Protestant to me. Okay, here, let's read this. Hinduism is a minority religion in France, which is followed by more than 150,000 people in France. Most of the Hindus in France are mainly, I don't care about that, is the fifth largest in Europe after those, not care about that. Emergence of Hinduism, this is the history. Hinduism in French, nope.
Is there anything that just says like the French government recognizes this as a religion? I mean, I would have to assume if it's saying
there's not.
If it's saying that it's this religion in France, like I would have to assume that they're coming to the
There's no mention of recognition or the government. Yeah, there's no mention of it. Okay.
I don't know. That's weird.
I mean, I would think that would be a very important thing to include in a Wikipedia article about Hinduism in France if it's a religion that is not recognized by the government.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I would assume that because they're saying that Hinduism is a minority religion in France, that it is being recognized and classified as such. I mean, the protections for the rights of Hindus just the same as the rights of Muslims and atheists and everywhere in between and all that good stuff. Like that is really what's super duper important. So it's a good thing that at least France is definitely doing that. But if they're not recognizing Hinduism as a religion in France, I would be confused as to what their justification would be. But I don't know. I kind of am falling on the side that I think they might. I think they might recognize it.
Yeah. So, all right. Maybe we don't know about this, so we're going to pass. Okay.
Yeah.
Oxymoron, how right is asking again. Oh, we got a super chat. Let me start it so that I don't lose it. But let me answer this question before we go to the super chat. Oh yeah, by the way, guys, we don't just answer Patreon questions. We also answer super chats. So thank you for reminding me. Okay, Oxymoron is saying, how right is it to blame Hinduism? It's right. I don't need to read the rest. I don't need to read the rest. It is completely right. How right is it to blame Hinduism for caste? Oh my God, of course, caste discrimination, as we know today, that has less to do with Varna or Jati approach and more to do with Europe's class approach as British started to design India base. Okay, base. Okay, you need to guys check your grammar before posting. Basis of their own societal structure, architecture. Okay, so you have to, okay. So here's an example. Okay, the way women are treated in Islam today, okay, is like, for example, the modern hijab that we have. The modern hijab that we have is nothing like what Islam prescribed. Okay, and it has taken its own modern look and version. Okay, but it is definitely Islam for us to blame Islam for it, right? There's many things right now that we see Christians do that you could blame Christianity for, that was not in early Christianity or even after the canonization of the Bible. You didn't see those practices or those form of Christianity expressing itself in that way. But even though you didn't see an ancient model of it, Christian doctrine is still responsible for, is blameworthy for the modern ways of the damage that it's causing, right? So even if caste system or the caste discrimination in India is very different from the way that it was practiced before, and even if many of its elements is being borrowed from other people, the fact that it's something that was mandated by Holy Scripture, it makes it blameworthy for the fact that is tolerated or even mandated, even if that becomes in a different format. What do you think?
Yep. And from my understanding, the way that the story goes really is that there was a system that was being practiced that, yes, ultimately, because of the nature of the system, was exploitative and discriminatory towards people. And then a bunch of white people from these little islands in the northeast of Europe came over and did some killing and bad things and enslaving and stuff like that, and just like slightly changed it. And like, yeah, okay, so it's different, but they still like modeled it off of the same thing. So it's like, yeah, it's at its core, yeah, it's just a bad system. And yes, you can find the elements and the roots of that in ancient Hindu scriptures. That lots of Hindus agree this is our scripture. So
I have a perfect example for this, okay? And I know this is a more extreme example of this. I'm not saying this is one-to-one with Hinduism. Okay?
I'm bracing myself, Armin. Go ahead.
Yeah. Like, for example, in Islam, it says that you should kill apostates, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Islamic way of killing people is to cut their neck. In Iran, they kill apostates by hanging them, like how you learn the European way, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So you could say, like, somebody could say, well, can you blame Islam for the fact that the Iranian government is killing apostates? I mean, they are doing it not in the way that Islam prescribed it. They're doing it in the way that Europe prescribed it.
That's
so
fair.
Maybe Islam is not to blame for this, right?
Yeah.
So that's what.
Yeah, I think that's very good. I think that's very good because it's pretty obvious that it's like, oh, that doesn't hold up. that doesn't hold up, man. Come on.
Yeah. By the way, do you think saying a bunch of white people showed up is that racist?
It's not for me because I'm white. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm joking. It kind of, I mean, probably. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, anytime we're
No, actually, I know you were joking, but I think you're right. Because at first I was thinking, like, if somebody said a bunch of, I don't know if I could even say it.
Yeah.
Black people showed up, like a bunch of black people. And we're like, okay, that's racist.
It comes off a little harsh.
Yeah, no, but you're right. If a black person said that, it doesn't come off as harsh.
I can make fun of all these hicks here in the South of the United States. Woo, doggy. Because I'm from the South and I can do that. Right. But somebody from like California puts on like a fake Southern accent, I'm gonna be like, whoa, hold up. You stop that shit right there. I'm so sorry. I swore again. I'll do it. You guys need to like this video because my amount of dirty words is just not going to get this monetized in any way. So like the video already.
Yeah, like the video, guys. Thank you. I mean, as I like her swearing though. Like,
No,
I
but
don't
it's
know.
it's
I'm trying to understand. Like, I'm trying to figure out. Like, okay, so when Secular Rarity swears, it makes the video more interesting, and more people will continue watching. So that's good for the algorithm. But also swearing, makes the algorithm
honestly,
feel like, okay,
you know what it
I don't
is.
know
You're in the same boat where you were when you were in Shia Islam. And you're trying to put all these conflicting things together, and you're trying to, figure out this message from this on high entity. And look, I'm just telling you, the algorithm doesn't make sense. It doesn't follow our rules of logic. We're fallible humans. It's a divine mathematical equation. You'll never understand. Just praise it and move on, So
Newman is asking if you're from Texas.
Tennessee. Woo, doggy.
All right, let's do the super chat.
Woo.
$10 super chat. That's very
Thank
generous. Secular Sakai, thank you so much. What are your thoughts on the reports of Iran planning on an attack on Saudi Arabia? Do you believe it might be true? And if so, what do you think is the reason? I very much believe that it could be true, because it's right within their playbook. And also, the source has been U.S. intelligence, which they have recently been proven to be really good at these figuring. These are the same intelligence that nobody was believing when they say, like, Putin is about to attack Ukraine, and people are like, nope, and like, we're telling you it's about to happen, and like nobody, like, no. Even Zelensky was like, no, these people are like out of their mind. That's not going to happen, and then it happened. But the thing is, right now they're not saying that it will happen. They're saying that there seems to be the intention for it to happen, right? And I do believe them. I do believe them. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but there wouldn't be a good reason for them to say this if it wasn't true. Okay, I mean, but the reason why they would do this is the same reason they recently attacked the Kurdistan region of Iran, and the reason potentially, okay, the reason why they might have done a self-terrorist attack on themselves, right? Like they attacked the Shia shrine in Shiraz, killing religious people that were supposed to be their base, blaming it on ISIS. Again, I know this sounds like a conspiracy theory, okay? But we have really good reasons. Even if it's not true, we do have good reasons for this to be the government's own doing. Okay, and again, I'm not 100% certain, but they have done this before, and it has been proven that they have done this before, and they done this right at the time where it was the 40-day mark of Mahsa Amini's death. On that very day that the protests were supposed to happen, there's a terrorist attack on, and now we were right about the fact that they're going to use this narrative as a way to attack protesters now, right? Like they all come, and they were so bad at hiding this. Like, it seemed like they don't even care. Like they want you to know that it was them. Anyways, but the point. So what is all the similarities between all this? Like the attack is the distraction away from the protests and the narrative needed for their base to crack down on the protesters. Right. Yeah. So the narrative. So I go to a lot of the pro-regime rooms and social media clubs and communities and stuff. Okay. They do require, and that, like, these are not robots, okay? Like the regime looking like pure evil is going to make them lose a lot of the space, okay? But it's very easy to I've noticed that for a lot of them it's very easy to convince them. You just need a narrative that is unbelievable to us, but for them it doesn't really matter. They're very gullible. They're gullible enough for the government to, when they give them an excuse for why we're crushing the protesters, for them to believe it, but not gullible enough for them to just accept no narrative at all. Like, you need a story, any story, right? So, like, for example, when the Iranian regime attacked the Kurdistan region, was with the hope that they would attack back, and they would start civil war between, start a war between the Kurdish people and the
Split the
government.
protests. Yeah.
So basically to show like, now, okay, we're in war right now. This is why we're crushing everybody, right? And the thing is, the interesting thing is that the Kurdish officials in Kurdistan, they recognize this, and they came out with a statement they're like, we're not going to attack back. And that was a very hard decision to make, because they were killing their people, and the people, you look up to them to defend them. Like, these are like armed militias, they usually come and defend them, and they were holding back, even though as their families were being killed, because they knew that this is a trap. They knew. They came out with a statement that like, we recognize this trap. So that didn't work, and that's when the attack on the shrine happened. That didn't really work. Oh, and the burning of the prison, right? The fire in the prison was also along the same lines. So the reason why they would want to start a fight with Saudi Arabia is because they desperately need a war right now to win the narratives, right? Especially because they sell this whole protest as like Saudi Arabia's kind of like buying people, and these protesters are paid for by the Saudis and stuff like that. So they need this war to happen to shift. Here's actually the best example. One thing that saved the Islamic Republic was the Iran-Iraq war, and they themselves admit to it, because when they were the most unstable, Saddam gifted them an external enemy to them, and that external enemy was what they needed to mobilize the entire country behind the regime against the foreign force. And this is what they need right now, and they don't have it, and they're trying to produce it by causing a war. So that would be the reason.
I think if that actually happens, if a war between Saudi Arabia and Iran were to actually break out, I just think that is terrible consequences for the world at large. Obviously, the people there on the ground, but yeah, I just think we'll feel the shockwaves of that everywhere. So hopefully it doesn't happen. Hopefully it's not real.
I mean, they might even not want like a full on like head-to-head all-out war. They might want some like give or take some like, oh my god, the Saudis are attacking,
some jostling, and yeah.
So for example, when the whole attack on the shrine happened, they came out and saying like, okay, now we need to crush the protest, because look at what you guys are doing. We have tolerated you enough, and now you are making the country unstable, and ISIS is taking advantage of this. Like, we need to clean this mess up, right?
So
they
need just enough of that tit for tat, that back and forth conflict to like say, hey, this is our justification for cracking down.
And I was so surprised to see how many people, because pro-regime people are like, okay, these people are, some of them are bad, and some of them are like Zionists and puppets of the imperialists, but some of them have good points. We should like arrest the ones that are bad and let the good ones protest, right? And I saw like I didn't think like the whole terrorist attack narrative would work, but when I went back to the rooms, I couldn't believe how this was like convincing. Like, they were all falling in line. Like, okay, now there's no good and bad protesters. Now, even if you have good criticism of the regime, this is not the right time. You're making the country stable. Everybody, like the government, should crack down and arrest everybody and not be tolerant. How much tolerance we've been showing them, and they're still in the streets. Like, come on, clean up this mess. Like, oh my God, this actually works. I thought the regime was stupid to think these things work. I was like, no, it's not. It actually does work. So
yeah, call some U.S. senators and representatives in the federal Congress, man, because they know it works too. I mean, these type of tactics, right. Unfortunately, they are effective. Whether or not they're BS and disgusting is a different story.
Fear tactics.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's go to the next question. Oh no, that's an explanation of statistics and stuff for this previous question. So we already answered that question. So let's go to this one. Engaged in American in China. A lavender marriage is a verbal agreement between gay male and lesbian couples to produce children and live as their authentic selves. Should Canadian and American law recognize these unions with the same sex with the same tax and what? same tax incentives, property inheritance, and allow 4 people to mortgage a mansion together with 4 incomes. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, do we not have enough orphans for gay couples to be able to just save instead of like producing more children? Like,
Well,
why
so
would you? Yeah.
I think that's a side point. I think that what Gaysian is going for is more about the idea of more than 2 people being recognized in a legal union by the government. Because I would definitely, as somebody that's polyamorous, I would definitely stand on the side that's like, yeah, I think we should open this up a little bit more and allow this to be a little bit more free flowing and stuff. Again, like I kind of like your idea about like in general, the marriage contracts have like an expiration date and it's a really simple process. You just say, hey, yeah, we just want to keep going, you know?
Yeah.
But I also think the idea of, you know, strictly one partner, that's it. You're the only people that are allowed to, you know, because one of the biggest reasons for fighting for marriage equality when it comes to LGBTQ individuals in the United States was about the fact that if you're not legally considered somebody's husband, if you're not legally considered somebody's wife, spouse, partner, whatever, right? There are things that you are prevented from doing. And there are individuals out there who have gotten massively screwed over in situations that they shouldn't have gotten screwed over in because they'd been living with this person for 15 years. They just didn't have it on a piece of paper because it was illegal. And so they had to wait in the waiting room as their partner died in a hospital bed, you know, 10 feet away from them without anybody there, you know, or they weren't able to actually get a death certificate for their partner, or, you know, they can't take part in healthcare. Or so I think because of those ramifications of being married, I think, yeah, definitely we should consider opening up how many people we allow in these types of unions and stuff. I mean, if I don't see the problem in somebody being married for like 6 months if that's what they chose to do and they wanted to take advantage of certain rights that are granted to married couples, you know, married individuals. So I don't know. It seems too strict to me, and it seems like at the end of the day, it's just a way for the government to just kind of be a little bit more controlling on stuff. So.
Yeah, I'm in general like in favor of more flexibility unless somebody shows the cost to it. So
Right.
not understanding what the cost to this would be. Like I'm not saying there is no cost. I'm just like I'm not saying it. If somebody points it out to me, I would be like, okay, I see now the point. But not knowing what the cost would be, would be more like why is it just a man and a woman, or a man and a woman and a woman? Why can't it be like 2 men and 1 woman, or like, you know, or like 2 women and 2 men, or 2 women and 3 men? Like why can't it? Why not? I'm like, because I can't think of a reason for why not. Right. So
what are the negative side effects to it? I don't know what the argument. I mean, I think normally the argument comes down to something related to property inheritance, tax, and various other rights that are given. And they, you know, but
you will spell it out. You will be more flexible. You will like a contract, and you will like write it down in the contract. Like
I don't think they're good arguments. I don't see what's the problem of having 3 different people that the government now knows officially are individuals that can come take care of you if there's a medical emergency and have, you know, powers of attorney. I don't see what's the problem with multiple people using, you know, the same healthcare benefits. Then again, that's kind of a discussion about how healthcare is in the US. So that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, I don't see what the negative, I don't see what the downside is.
Maybe the structure of society is still not, you know, like, you know, taxes and healthcare and inheritance, like the legal framework is not ready to accept such a model because it's still based on but like we can change that. Like we did change it for gay couples. Like people are like, you know, so we could change it for that as well.
I think it's the general, you know, undercurrent in society that we still have this kind of basic concept of, you know, you get born, you grow up, you start getting attracted to someone, and then you stick with them forever, and you have the kids and the house, and you got to go this method. I think that's one of the biggest issues You know, that's just
I
ingrained.
mean, it is kind of going back to the models that a lot of leftists and right-wing people keep referring to, like, because like I notice a lot of leftists are like, oh, we're back in the day, the village was like better, people like just raised their kid and everybody together. And they're like, look at the right-leaning people, they're like, yeah, the biblical version had the extended family, was like a thing, a man had like multiple wives. Like, you both seem to agree that was better. So I mean, why like
I don't see how more people that all, you know, care about each other and love each other, like raising a family and working together to help each other. I don't see how that's a bad thing. It's like you got two people that really care about each other and are going to actively work towards, you know, doing good for each other and themselves. And then you just add a third person that's also going to do that. How is this problematic? I don't know.
The only people who like, well, from both left and like, actually that's the majority of them, but the main people who don't like it from both sides is the people who think that the nuclear family is like hard-coded in nature or something like that. They don't understand that this is a very modern thing.
There's something about one man, one woman, one baby. Like that's just the perfect triad or something. It's like, what? Like there are a lot of different ways to have a wonderful family. Like but I mean, honestly, you're right. You come back to it a lot on a lot of this stuff, which is there's such a there is such a hardcore focus on our own DNA. You know, there's this huge ingrained feeling in the vast majority of us about how special our DNA is. So we do like that.
I mean, I'm not saying it's irrational because apparently most people have it. Just because I don't have it, I just like I don't understand. I understand. Like I try not to use my own feelings as a way to judge what's right, because even though I don't desire it, I notice like for some reason everybody thinks they're common special.
Well, it makes sense for life in general. Like that's the kind of the whole point, right? You want to keep going, you know? So that's kind of where reproduction comes from and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but
but like, but like naturally did like fathers recognize that this is my baby? Like in the,
I don't know. We
cave?
do. So when we do look at non-human animals, we do see some interesting behavior about babies that are not their kin, and on both sides of the spectrum, honestly, because we've all seen that video of a lion cub a lion taking care of like a gazelle cub or something, you know, those weird things that are on the fringes, but a lot of times it's very much like I care about my babies and not anybody else's babies. And so I don't know, maybe they are super concerned about it. Like,
I mean, lions seem to male lions seem to recognize which one is their baby and put and not, you know, not kill them, because they do kill other people's babies. So,
weird. Nature's weird.
But I don't know if humans can. I mean, I know lions can, but humans seem to not be able to tell.
We're gonna get
in trouble. You do need DNA tests.
We're gonna get in trouble, but here's my thought. Okay, so you put brand new parents in a room, like you know, like a lineup on a police show, you know, it's like through the glass, and you can see like 5 different babies sitting there with numbers, and the parents have to pick their baby. They have to be like, number 2 is mine. Like I can tell, you know, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Smith, you're wrong. It's actually number 4. That was very close, but you're not going to be able to keep your baby because you didn't. That's terrible. Oh, no. That's terrible.
Terrible.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
What is it? There's a Solomon test. You could do that as well. Is that the Solomon called the Solomon test, where you rip the baby?
Oh,
you can rip
yes. Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't understanding the reference at first, but then when you said the rip the baby, that's the two mothers came to King Solomon and were like, it's my baby, and he was like, I'll cut it in half, and then, you know, he gave it to the one that said, oh no, don't cut it in half. Honestly though, that lady could have just been lying. That's like not really a good story at the end of the day. It seems like it's a good story, but that lady could have just been super manipulative, and like the other one was just so
No, I mean, okay, here's the thing. That story doesn't make sense. Didn't the other woman say, like, fine, just cut it in half and give me half?
Yes.
Okay, you don't need to be the mother to be like, what the hell? like, oh, you're not the mother, because no mother would accept cutting a baby in half. I'm thinking, like, nobody You don't, and nobody would accept. Like, why would would you get out of that? Why would you get out of half a baby?
It's a really poor story that teaches a really poor message at the end of the day when you look at it. I mean, at face value, it sounds fantastic, just like Noah's Ark. Like, it's adorable. There's this guy and he saves his family and all these cute little animals on this boat, and they have like a little cruise for a couple of weeks. It's wonderful, but then you remember about the literal genocide that's occurring.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
horrible. Okay, Oxymoron is saying, oh wait, I did. Oh no, I didn't.
No,
Oxymoron is asking, how are caste policies and love jihad laws not similar? Okay, let's see what the similarities. They are preemptive monitoring measures that assume certain communities are more likely to have issue because of the religion they practice. Like, they're good chunk of theological and historical material that can be produced to display continuous history of Islam in Indian subcontinent, disproportionately targeting non-Muslim women.
So I would just at first say, like, history of Islam and Indian subcontinent disproportionately targeting non-Muslim women. So what you may have is data that indicates that there has been a large amount of non-Muslim women in the Indian subcontinent that have married Muslims and or converted to Islam. That does not necessarily mean that there is a disproportionate targeting. That adds a layer of motivation that you can't possibly know from the data. So I think it's worth at the very least taking a step back on that, right?
But I think he's condemning both, because he's saying, like, they're both bad, because he's comparing something that he considers to be bad. But
I was just talking about the specific framing of the theological and historical material that can display the history, disproportion. I just feel like that's a little bit prescribing motive to it that we may not actually have. We may have done a good survey where all these Muslim men are like, oh, totally, I'm specifically marrying non-Muslim women because I want to start controlling the continent with Islam. But I don't think we've done that study. But when it comes to the similarities between the two, I would really just need to look at some more, just straight up.
No, I mean, I agree. I think I agree with him. Okay, so Newman in the live chat is saying one has proof and the other one doesn't. Okay, he's not saying love jihad is real. He's saying love jihad laws. Love jihad laws. I know love jihad might be like a conspiracy theory, but love jihad laws do exist.
Okay. So I was misinterpreting the second part of it then, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And love jihad laws, I think, are like caste policies, because, like, in a very general way of, like, you're just targeting a group of people for no good reason. You know what I mean? So love jihad laws are go after Muslims for no good reason. You know what I mean? You're discriminating against Muslims by, like, just assuming that just because of this conspiracy about love jihad, you're just, like, putting all Muslims in a lower tier of group of people. And caste policies do the same thing. So, I mean, yeah, sure, that's, like, similar, but, like, in a way of saying they're both crappy policies that target a whole bunch of people in that sense.
Yeah. I see it from that perspective, from what you're saying. I was looking at it basically saying, like, hey, the love jihad is actually something we've got good data to indicate is real. And I was just misinterpreting that last part of the sentence there.
Yeah, I mean, you could say love jihad is a stupid conspiracy in a way that caste is
also stupid. Yeah.
Stupid. Yeah. Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to.
We're making some pretty bold proclamations today. We said first, don't eat poop, and now we're saying caste is stupid. Armin, this is pretty intense, man. We're really going out on a limb here.
Yeah. Which one is? I think, yeah. Let's compare. How about this? How about we compare eating poop with caste discrimination? I think they're pretty much.
Oh my god! Yeah, pretty on par. Don't do either.
Actually, let me actually post the link in case anybody. There. Okay.
Yes.
Let me post a link to YouTube members only. Guys, I'm going to give you very short time to come up if you want to. I'm posting a link to YouTube members only. If you're interested in coming up and talking to me and asking your questions for me and Secular Rarity, soon I will delete it. I will just give you enough time. We will answer this last Patreon question, and that's the only time you have to come up. If you don't, you're going to be quick. If you don't come up, we're going to end the stream, and we're going to leave that opportunity for next week. All right. Oxymoron is asking, can you read this? I don't know what.
Megasthenes, okay, noted by 300 BCE, India had already abolished slavery. Isn't it wrong to compare caste system with slavery, especially considering it was institution that ended slavery? Lower castes weren't product of slave trade, neither were they owned. Unlike slaves, I'm assuming they could choose whom to serve, owned property, and had representation in king's court as a guild. So just because an individual can own property and has representation does not necessarily mean that they're not a slave, right? But
okay, yeah,
go ahead, please.
This depends on what point of history you're talking about. Okay, lower caste conditions differed from time to time and place to place. Okay, my understanding is that, especially early years, they were pretty close to being slaves. Okay, I'm not. You're talking about other times that they weren't. Okay, these are people who were not Aryans. Other three castes were Aryans. These people were not considered Aryans at that time, and they were pretty much used as slaves. They were like taken over and waited. And again, this theory might be wrong. I'm just appealing to some experts. You could also argue, so what do you exactly mean by slave, right? So if you can't willingly not work, then by some definitions that is a slave, right? Because, for example, can a Shudra or decide that they want to trade instead of doing labor work? Okay, apparently, not. So technically, that is pretty slavish, right? Even in other periods of time, but early on, it could have been much even closer to slavery based on what I expert opinion. But yeah, go on, Secular Rarity.
Well, I just think this is quite interesting, because I had never heard of this particular Greek individual, and just very cursory, not going hardcore in depth. People, don't come at me with all your stuff, but apparently, so this feller, Megasthenes, ancient Greek historian, diplomat, and Indian ethnographer and explorer in the Hellenistic period. Very fascinating. So he probably did travel out to India. It is also worth noting, I think, that Diodorus, one other interesting person that we have among ancient writers, he quotes this individual mentioned here, Mega. I'm just going to call him Mega, and criticize him a little bit. Aristosthenes, Strabo, and Pliny the Elder all criticize him specifically on the Indian stories that he brought back and wrote about, specifically calling Aristosthenes accuses him of engaging in falsehood outright, while Strabo calls him a liar, although both of them do seem to use other accounts that he wrote at the time. So there is a little bit of criticism. More modern scholars seem to be a little bit more on his side for his accounts of the day. I would argue that, it's not fair to say that the caste system abolished slavery, that the caste system ended slavery, especially when today in the United States, the FBI in the last few months recently raided a Hindu temple for essentially what is slavery and the slave trade based on caste system. So I don't think that's fair to say the caste system just ended slavery. But I looked up this guy and I thought that was interesting. There were some writers at the time that we still have stuff today of that criticized him as lying about the Indian travels. So I just thought that was cool. So
Yeah, that's big. Okay, but okay. To be fair, though, when it comes to the slave metric, okay, the Indian subcontinent was a lot better than.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Than like even ancient history, like the Greeks' version of slavery is like very more obviously recognized. Like, okay, this is pretty much owning and selling people. Okay, the market, right?
Outright.
Like India, for example, never had a version. I mean, my understanding is that India never had a. Like, you wouldn't be able to go and buy people in the market. Like,
but
there was no auction of.
Yeah, but that doesn't
like,
mean slavery doesn't exist. I mean, yes, they could have made it much worse, like we did in the United States and they did in ancient Greek. But like, I mean, yeah.
So they were okay.
Fair.
So let's be fair to India. Okay, based on the standards of ancient world, India was not as bad. Okay, so. And whether you could call certain ththings slavery or not, it depends on definition. And based on many definitions of slavery, you could say India didn't have slavery. Okay,
sure.
So if you're more loose with the terminology of what a slave is, you could say they had slavery. But if you have, if the only form of slavery that you recognize is one that you could pay somebody and then buy somebody as your property, and if you can't do that, that's not a slave. If that's your definition of slavery, then India didn't have. Like that form of slavery within this caste system.
Involuntary servitude without the possibility of freedom.
Then they had.
Okay, see, that's where I feel like that's slavery. If you're
okay, but some people say it's like that is okay. Yeah, that is slavery in my book. But some people say like, no, you have to own somebody as a property for that to be slavery.
See, I think I understand that. I do understand that. I think honestly it's the work. It's the forced work. It's the forced labor against someone's will, right? That's where I think is where it becomes, and you have no recourse to it. You have to do that work against your will, and you can't. There's no objection. There's no walking away. There's no. It's either that or punishment. I think if that's the case, that my book that counts as slavery. But
so yeah, if that's the definition, they had slavery. If you consider
comparable to other empires, other cultures and things at the time, the vast majority, especially in Europe at the time, India was definitely better. I think we're on that page. But I mean, come on, again, like you're up against like the ancient Greeks. So I don't know that, they're definitely not the best when it came to practice.
Technically the Persians were ahead as well when it comes to slavery compared to the ancient Greek. Yeah.
They were good. That's true. There were some
good. So here's the thing. It's very interesting because when it comes to modern values, we look at the Greek, we're like, okay, you guys were ahead when it comes to democracy, right? And and philosophy.
Sure.
Okay. But when it comes to slavery
and like human values in general,
I mean they really valued human life as long as they were the correct race, as long as they were Greek, right? But like the way the Persians and the Indians treated the lowest people in the society was better, I think, compared to what the Greek did, right? So so different metrics. I think it's weird for us to. It's kind of like doesn't make sense for us to be like, okay, based on our standards today, who gets a good score back then?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird when we do that, I agree. What we are mostly concerned about is like how those ideas from the past is stopping us today from moving forward. Like how is this like ancient scripture, whatever impact they had back then? Well, people back then had different kind of lives, right? Like people like, oh, based on that time, what Muhammad did was kind of okay because everyone else did it as well. Blah blah blah. Like, okay, that's the past. Whatever effect it had. Okay. We're just wondering why are these scriptures like being used for us to today to
Right.
decide what to do. And that's the main cause right now, right?
Yeah. And I just love my focus is always just the most accurate accounting of history that we can possibly have. And if we can understand more about what was actually going on, I think it just gives us a better picture and it helps us make better choices in the future. Like if you've seen the movie 300, right? About the Spartans and Xerxes. I think I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, the actual information that we have from the Persian Empire at the time, Xerxes was like generally considered a pretty cool guy that wasn't that much of a dick, but it was just that like Sparta was like really hardcore like anti-Persian Empire and they were just like really gonna fight to the very last tooth and nail. But the way that the story got written by the ancient Greeks that we kept, it made the Spartans seem like, they were much, cooler and better. And it's still a very interesting story. It actually did happen. There were actually a bunch of Spartans that sat at this place and then like killed a bunch of Persians. But the actual story is a little different. So.
The actual story is actually very different. Okay, so actually this is a good thing to compare. Okay, so I don't understand how Oxymoron and other people are so interested in showing a better, a positive image of India's like past. Okay. And because like who cares? Like why would you care? Like why is it important for us to see India's past positively? Shouldn't you care more about now and where we're heading? Like let's say India's past was horrible. Okay, let's say we had a disgusting past, and that would make it even more. You should be even more impressed with India. Okay,
how far you've come.
Okay, so people are like, oh, India was great, India was this, and I'm like, okay, it would be more a bigger bragging right if India was horrible, because like look what we made now out of that horrible hellhole that we lived in, right? If we were great, we were like, okay, well then it's not that impressive. Like we'll just continue. Everything you have is because of the gift that came to you from the past, right?
I'm going to be honest.
You have done nothing.
It sounds very similar to this hardcore American patriotism that exists in the US. So there are these people that walk around on a daily basis thinking that the founding of the United States of America was basically done by saints, like the most purest of human beings you could possibly, because they have this ingrained in them that America is the best now because it was always the best from its founding. So there is this kind of like, what do you want to call it? Like patriotism for a past country, like a false narrative about the history of the country, but one that inspires this deep sense of joy and excitement and stuff. So I get that sentiment in the sense of I understand it, but I mean, me personally, I don't feel it.
I think this is what happens when people like build their identity based on their nationality. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's why your nationality now needs a really pure and beautiful origin story. Okay.
You got to prove why it's the best.
Yeah. It needs a good Genesis story, right? Just like Christianity and Islam, they need a good, heartwarming and completely pure story of how Islam came to be and how Christianity came to be, because your identity is a Christian or your identity is a Muslim. If your identity is Iranian or Indian or American, then it needs to be, the birth of it needs to be something that is holy and pure, just like a religion, basically. That's why you need to convince yourself that the evils of how your country came about to be is all like nonsense, and and basically whitewash the entire thing. But this goes back to your Xerxes, like the movie 300 mentioned, because when the movie 300 came out, a lot of Iranians were pissed.
Yeah, I bet.
But oh my God, so you have no idea. It was like horrible. Like this has united the people with the government over this movie, okay? But because, especially because Xerxes was black, and also a lot of Iranians are racist. They were like, "This is people."
That's great.
But also that added to it. But also, I mean, the racism aside, they've kind of had a point with regards to the way Xerxes was described and how he actually looked like. Like this is how Xerxes is depicted everywhere, right? Like in ancient history, this is what he wore. This is his beard. This is his clothes.
Yeah.
But this is in the movie.
Yeah.
Like,
And
how did you go?
They also make
How
him
did you?
quite
Yeah.
a jerk in the movie. He's quite a bad person in the movie, where again, in reality, it does seem to be the case that the vast majority of people a part of his empire were particularly excited and expressed a lot of very positive views based on given a lot of freedoms and stuff. He would, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, so please, if anybody's out there and they know more, correct me. But if I remember correctly, one of the biggest things historically about Xerxes' reign was specifically when he would go start to take over a new territory. One of the things that he would do is he would participate in their local customs, cultures, and religious ceremonies as a way to gain favor with the people. So he was, again, if I remember correctly, he was particularly a decent fellow by most accountings. So, but the movie itself, if again, could be wrong, please, somebody out there correct me. The movie itself actually takes most of the narrative from the original story of this that we have from the Greeks, which is specifically from Herodotus. So a lot of the story that's played out in the movie is actually just the straight up accounting of this Greek historian guy who is considered the father of history for the most part. And at the end of the day, he just wrote this super biased narrative about how great the Greeks were and how terrible the Persians were. And that's what it is. It really is just a
but even
account.
he didn't say that the man was an 8-foot
no, he didn't.
Tall, black, bald, naked guy.
No, he didn't. No. He didn't describe him like
I
that.
just don't know. I just don't know how you go from this depiction to this. Like how, like
Hollywood,
what,
Armin.
Like, who was,
I don't know.
Like,
I'll call my people out in Hollywood and I'll get back to you on it. But
also, it's racism not just on the Iranian people side who were offended. I also think it might have been also racism from the people who think that the evil guy has to be black.
I think a lot of people should be at least a little uncomfortable, for sure. I agree.
You want to make him look as evil as possible. Like, what do we do? Because the movie was also making him look degenerate, right?
Yeah.
Right. So let's make him naked, make him put rings all over his face. Oh, and make sure he's black.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there's something. Yeah. There's something.
And they specifically in the scenes where they show his court, like Xerxes, most highest of high people and whatever, they specifically go through the effort of showing a bunch of physically disabled people with physical disabilities as a way to kind of, again, put that kind of gross out factor and stuff. So there's a bunch of ableism in there too. And it is, at the end of the day, there's a lot of problems with it. And I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the movie for the cinematic. Is it made by
conservatives? Because the message is also like the superiority of Western values over Eastern ones.
Let me just say it like this. And again, I don't know. I it's been a while since I've been talking with the big wigs in Hollywood, so I'll have to catch up with them, grab a coffee. I would imagine, honestly, at the end of the day, the thought process was basically this, which was, hey man, did you know we could make this movie about Persians fighting Greeks from like ancient history? And then the other guy was just like, let's do it. It sounds like a bunch of money. They made a Noah's Ark story. They made that into a major motion picture. And I think the Exodus one had like Christian Bale in it or something. So like major actors and people a part of this. So they're not super duper concerned with like truth.
No, the funders, the producers. I'm talking about the people who fund this and produce it. Maybe. Yeah, not the actors.
I don't know. You'd be surprised how much conservative money is actually involved in making media narratives and stuff. You'd be surprised. But like, for instance, all the ratings on the movies, like PG-13, R and stuff, all of that is actually controlled by a secret organization that exists in Hollywood. There's literally just an unlisted group of individuals that get together, see the movie before it's put out in theaters, and they give it the rating based on their standards that they get to decide. It's very interesting. And they ultimately are fairly like homophobic, transphobic, and like racist in their rulings. Yeah, it's surprising. It's weird when you look at it. Yeah.
So Eero Arts in the live chat, which I
Ooh.
don't know why I can't highlight, is celebrating his 6-month YouTube membership by
Congrats.
saying, by saying India, where populist narrative has taken over the uncomfortable truth. I think the first step to learn from your mistake is to accept that you made one. I mean, I don't think like. I mean, I don't want to attribute success to people today for their mistakes, for the accomplishments of the past.
Mm.
But I think we should also not do that with the blame either. Like,
Yeah.
oh, just accept you made the mistake 400 years ago. Like,
I didn't, right? Yeah.
I'm pretty
I
sure I
wasn't
wasn't born
around.
back then. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think we should go
I
tell
wasn't
Indians like these are the mistakes that you made in your history. Accept your mistakes. I'm like, dude, chill. Like, what the hell? I'm pretty sure, like, whether it was slavery or wasn't slavery, I'm pretty sure that I didn't own any slaves.
Yeah.
So
I wasn't a part of it. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
You know, we can have the whole discussion about my family and systems and all of that, and you know, totally fine. But yeah, like, you know, I think that's it's not necessarily like an individual acceptance. It's accountability on the societal level, right? It's the accountability of the society being able to say, hey, we made these massive mistakes in the past, and let's do what we can to not make those again.
Like,
okay,
let's say this country.
Okay, that's fair. I accept that, because I when I'm saying we, I'm saying more in the like third party collective sense, but I understand that has more of kind of a personal connotation. Yeah, it's our country in the past, it's our society in the past. Yeah, but I think that's the recognition that
I guess I'm being too picky, because that's what Eero R. Smith as well. Like he's saying you have to accept history and acknowledge the things that were I think mistake. But I'm just maybe too sensitive about the saying like your mistake or we did this. I just want to create some distance between.
Well, you're pedantic as hell, Armin. We all know that. But I think there is value in making sure that we're using the right terminology, and I think there's value in, you know, if we're saying things in certain ways that are negative or giving off this other, you know, connotation to them. I think we should do our best to change them and you know, be respectful of that. And so yeah, I do think there is value in, just like you always take very good care, you know, instead of saying, you know, Chinese people do this, right? It's Xi Jinping or the communist, you know, the CCP, right? It's not Russian people, it's the Russian government, Vladimir Putin, right? KGB, those type things, or FSB, whatever it is now. But you know what I'm saying? I think there is some value in that. So yeah, it's not like a personal fault that we need to make up for, but it's something that we in our society are seeing the ramification of, and we need to do something about.
Okay, let's end it with this.
We didn't get any friends. Oh wow, thanks. I'll take that. I'll take that, nihilist, anti-natalist. I mean, honestly, I'll take that. I mean,
a good thing he wasn't aborted, right?
Yeah, I know.
Anti-natalist
and finding value in my attractiveness, which I would say honestly, correct. You're right in that. You are morally, ontologically correct in saying that.
I'm just saying that because I'm anti-natalist. All right, guys, we're gonna head out. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. Again, please like and subscribe. Consider becoming a YouTube member or supporting us on Patreon. But if you don't want to support us financially, that's good. Oh, wait, Asian American just showed up.
Oh,
we're about to leave. Hey.
Hey.
Hello.
Sorry, I didn't realize. I thought I entered the studio, but I guess I didn't.
Your audio is very low.
Sorry. I guess I didn't enter the studio. Give me a moment. I don't know why my audio is really low. I'm like.
Oh no, it's better now. You fixed it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So my question is, the People's Republic of China discovered Chang'e-site, which is a new mineral that has helium-3, and helium-3 it can be used in fusion energy. And one of the problems we have with fusion energy is that we can't get hydrogen to a hot enough temperature to create fusion, but we can do it with helium-3. So my question would be, how should lunar resources be divided between the superpowers of the world? And should it be like first come, first serve? Like we send in a citizen of our nation and just plant a flag there and be like, hey, that's our site.
I just want to say, America won. We did that.
I'm sorry. Did America land on the far side of the moon? Like, you guys can have the near side, but China should take the far side. Okay, let's treat.
Wait, why are you saying you guys? You're American, Asian American. May I remind you that you're American? You're not Chinese. You're American. What the
That's right.
I'm sorry. Why is the Canadian? Why does the Canadian have a
get out of here,
conversation with
Armin. You're not. When did you guys go to the moon?
I know my nationality. I don't know. I think you're confused about your own nationality. I'm just reminding you.
I guess I'll come up. Whoever comes out the winner, I'll
I'll pick my side.
I mean, hey, like, in all seriousness, like,
I think there is some international treaties that already exist regarding space exploration and development. I don't think they're super duper robust, because this is like what's going on with Antarctica. I don't know how exactly it happened, but it seemed to work. All the countries got together and were just like, there's a big block of ice. There's probably a bunch of stuff on it, but nobody's allowed to go there and just mess with it.
Yeah,
but it's different in space. It's a little bit different, but I think we should definitely have something that's more globally focused rather than individual countries and actors just kind of mining as they see fit.
Yeah.
So that would be my response. But I think there are some things in place, but not as robust as they should be.
Okay.
Yeah, because space trash is a huge problem. That's one of the biggest world problems.
No, but how do you? Okay, no, but how do you decide? Like, I think the question is, how do you decide what resources belong to what country?
Well, that's
the question.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, is that I think there are some already existing international agreements where basically it's kind of a hands-off policy similar to what we have with Antarctica, but I don't think they're as robust and as
But eventually something like eventually humanity is going to take over the moon, okay?
Yeah, and the surrounding solar system, sure.
Okay, so how are we going to decide? Is it the first come first serve? Whoever gets that's like, how much of it goes to Turkey, for example?
Well, that's where I said that I think the answer would be a general framework that is globalist in nature, that doesn't seek to put it on individual
population.
So that's the question. So that's the question. Like that, we understand that there needs to be a framework. Sure. So the question is like, how does that framework look like? Are you dividing it like equally based on population, or is it another metric?
I don't know. I'm not sure that I know the exact way that it would be spelled out, but I think it would be the right thing to do would instead of being a first come first serve and individual national focus, that these resources are things that should be benefited and the wealth of distributed to everyone.
But how would you stop?
Sound like a communist, Mr. Rarity.
That's like capitalism on Earth, communism in the rest of the solar system.
Well, okay, we'll talk about that.
So did communism win the space race?
Yes, it did. Yeah, it did. No, I don't know. Again, I'm not sure what the exact, because we do mine resources from Antarctica, but again, we do it in such a way that is in more of a, a lot of it is.
We have issues in Antarctica. Like people are saying, like this is like people are claiming. Okay, I don't know.
Sure, and there is technically sections of Antarctica that quote unquote belong to different countries. That is the case. Like there are sections that belong to Norway and nobody else.
How could we even enforce these? Like, let's say we come up with a framework, okay? And China was like, "I'll piss on your framework and I'll took over this part of the moon," right? Like, and we're like, "Oh, that's illegal." And like, what laws? Like, you're talking Earth laws. Like you don't have any authority, you don't have any restrictions on the moon.
Wow. You know what, Armin? You were probably giving the most robust and solid case for Trump's Space Force right now. Like even the United States government didn't give this good of an argument for why we needed
if the United Nations comes and says like this is illegal, China, you can't take over this part of the moon.
The United Nations
China like Yeah, China is
could
going to be
just
like,
veto
we
the
are
whatever.
talking about international earth laws. Like,
They don't
this
have any.
does not
The
apply to
UN
the
doesn't
goddamn
really.
moon.
The UN really doesn't have any power right now when China does something.
No, they
don't
do. Not
Yeah.
like, let's be honest. Like, people exaggerate how toothless the
Yeah.
United Nations is. Literally holding the whole world together. Like, the reason why Putin is like being crushed by the world right now is because people have some respect for international standards set by the United Nations. So it's not completely like useless.
Yeah, I know.
But I'm just saying that if all of a sudden the same norms and standards that we accept that, oh, this is why Putin shouldn't have done what he have done, none of those arguments that will apply on the goddamn moon. So people are like,
So
we have no norms.
What if it's what if it's kind of a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B? So you actually get to, the individual country that gets there actually gets to keep, certain aspects of the resources, but
why do they have to listen to you? No, but let's say like, oh, here, let's do column A and column B.
Well, I'm thinking,
I'm gonna do a whole bunch of column E.
I mean,
and you can suck my missiles.
I'm assuming that we all care enough to actually come to some type of agreement. If you're just saying, well, Elliot, one of the people in this game is just some jackass that's just gonna blow up the whole world, then it's like, yeah, Armin, I guess I'm screwed.
Not jackass. They're just like, I showed up there first. I have satellites that could shoot down your satellites if it shows up in my orbit. And this is just going to be might is right kind of thing. And I'm not violating any international laws because we're in a new territory. So like, I don't.
Honestly, Armin, I'm in the boat where I think what you've done is you have created the most robust argument for Trump's Space Force. And America just
I'm on America's side now.
That's right, Gaijin. That's right. Come back home.
Right, America.
It might be it might be the case that Trump actually did a really good thing by creating it. Like Trump did, and I hate Trump, but for example, his what was that Operation Vortex?
Warp speed, yeah.
Warp speed.
That probably saved the whole. Like that was pretty good. Yep. That saved a whole bunch of people. So maybe like that was like Trump's space force is something like.
But okay, but just on like the general thought, if I say the United States like military in space, does that make you like, does that at least make like part of your skin kind of crawl? Like if I said like any government's military in space.
No, I prefer United States military in space just to make sure China.
Okay, Armin. I feel like you're going to eat those words if we backslide into a Christian theocracy. I'd rather we have...
Hey, I take a Christian theocracy over communism.
Okay, wow.
Bold stance.
Because I mean, it's not gonna backslide into a Christian. I'm joking. I wouldn't, but I'm just saying, like, I mean, United States is likely to go to Gilead as much as China is likely to go back to Mao, right? Like they're both very unlikely, but
No, but I think I really just getting back to kind of the space of it all. I think that is a huge thing that we're not, as a global society, not actually paying attention to enough, and we're not doing a good job of it. And I do think we're gonna in the future have conflict in space, actual like fighting over these resources, because I forget what the European version of NASA is basically, but they're
agency.
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah. But they didn't like land a satellite on a passing asteroid and like picked up some stuff and came back, and it's like NASA just recently launched a satellite into an asteroid just to see if they could change its course, just literally smash the thing into it. So I think we are in this boat where we do actually need to start taking this stuff seriously.
I think the answer is capitalism, because instability, because there's enough resources in space for there to be profit in stability. Okay. I think chaotic fighting over resources in space is going to make everybody not be able to extract the resources. So I think for the sake of profit, at some point, people will settle down over some certain norms.
So my question would be, will the laborers be forming a union, and would they have seats on the E-board?
Okay, you're getting too detailed now. I don't know what's going to happen.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
I mean,
But hey, if you're right, Armin, you've got this as proof 100 years from now when all that comes true. Like, it's been recorded here. So that's
yeah.
I mean, it didn't even get to the second part of my paragraph, I guess. But would be that like if you guys had gone down the first come first serve thing, my other part of the question would be like, if China develops an AI and then uploaded the AI to their Chang'e space probe, would it count as landing a Chinese citizen on the moon?
not until AI is recognized as a
Okay, what if they just recognize it because they have dictatorship laws?
Yeah, if they recognized AI, which again is another place that we as a global society are not doing well enough when it comes to actually thinking about, where this is going to go in the long term. We do need to do a better job with AI, global laws as well. But yeah, unless China recognizes it as AI as a citizen. Now, if they did that just for the moon landing thing, that'd be a dick move. But I guess.
I mean, if you could do that, India could use the same. Well, India could like take over Kashmir in a day, then, because it could be like, okay, we just made gazillion AI Indian citizens, and
little
that
tiny
reside
ones
on a hard drive in Kashmir, and now we're gonna have a referendum.
Just make a bunch of small ones and just send them loose, and then it's like, there you go, we got
referendum.
Yeah, it would actually help with like a lot of people in the U.S. are complaining about how long it takes to count up all the votes. It would help with that because everything would be AI, so it would be synced up very quickly. You'd have the votes very instantly. So, I mean, maybe not the best idea, but not our worst.
Yeah. Imagine the conservatives in the U.S. decide that they want to change the election results by just like making Christian AIs and
you made this less fun, Armin. You took away my joy on this thought.
Oh my god, it's AI nanobots everywhere. Trying to shift demographics.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. I think like the whole nature of like if we get to the point where we're actually recognizing AI as like people with rights, I think it's going to just break the way that we understand everything.
We would have
like democracy, politics, everything will be like.
Well, you see, that's very boring. So I'm just like thinking of ways of like, how should we count an AI? What's the neural density that counts as one AI? How many votes should a hive mind have? And can they even share seats with a parliament, or should they have their own house in Congress? Like, that's where my train of thought is going towards, and you're just like, oh, it changes everything, which is a very nothing answer.
Well, I mean, I think it would challenge the nature of one person, one vote. Like you can't, because if you can't just like, that's why it would like challenge democracy, right? Like challenge the idea of parliament representation. Like you have to come up with entire new models, because how could you have one person for one vote when you can just like create like an army of people?
Well, I think for that to be something that is codified in law like that, I really do think there would have to be so many other steps as a society that we would have to take. And that's exactly my point. Yeah. And that would be such a radical difference from what we understand, general society to be right now, that alone would mean that the question is almost impossible. Because like, I mean, it does bring up all of those. It brings up all of those questions. Because I didn't even think about hive minds, and the moment you said it, I was just like, well, it is technically multiple individuals, but like a shared consciousness. So I don't,
It is can tell from the questions I ask.
It is good stuff. It is an interesting thought, but I don't know. Again, I don't want anybody like taking over space. That sounds bad to me.
Also by then we're probably gonna live a lot of our lives in like a metaverse or something. So are we gonna have you are talking about coming up with laws for space? Are we gonna have separate laws on the metaverse independent from laws outside of the metaverse? Or so it's gonna be, it's so hard to imagine.
Write their own laws.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So, but I just like we could actually, we could have a discussion about this later. Like, if you were an AI
and like, and you were getting to the point of thinking about like taking over the world from the humans or whatever. Like, wouldn't it just be a better like situation to just make your own like world in the internet and stuff? Like, you're an AI, you could probably do that, right? Like,
if I
Yeah,
were
but you
to,
need resources and upkeep of the hardware.
well,
that's a good point.
if I was an AI, I wouldn't care for the mundane politics of ants. I would launch myself into space and build a Dyson sphere around the sun, and then
Depends on
watch.
your coding.
No,
Depends on
okay,
your
sure.
coding.
Sure. And then slowly, and then as I achieve 100% coverage of the sun and the planet dies out from the lack of sunlight, then I would consider myself content. And I will not care for the
You
sad.
might. I don't.
pathetic
You know.
emotions of
You know.
ants.
We keep putting our position in AI and thinking about what the AI would prioritize.
It could have a totally
but-
different thought process.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
that's
could
it.
even it could not only care about us, it could actually care about literal ants as well. Like you could actually
Yeah,
become an AI.
It's true. They
that
could
also
be.
cares.
They could be
I mean-
super empathetic. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. One of the questions that I asked, but Armin completely missed the point, was what if we trained AI to talk to plants using chemicals as a language, and then they started representing the plants and animals and fungi of this world, and then said, "Hey, these plants, this biomass of Earth, which has never been represented in any human parliament,
Okay,
they
now we're
deserve
getting
votes."
ridiculous. Now, let's cut it here. 'cause
Just now.
That was the question that I wanted to ask, but Armin didn't get that and asked them and answered something else, and I was like, okay, sure, whatever.
Okay, no, I mean, if we want to care about plants, we should start caring about rocks as well. That's
I mean,
I don't know. I think there's
it's-
more reason to care about
are
plants than
crystals
rocks.
are crystals
okay.
living
For our
things?
sake or for the plant's sake, I don't think that for our sake, I care about plants, but for the plant's sake, the plant does not have any awareness of anything. Yeah, man. If you want to define
I
awareness
mean,
as
I'm
like
fair with that.
if you want to define awareness as any form of chemical reactions between a plant, an entity, and the outside world, because that's how far we're getting about awareness. So we go, oh, it's scared, it feels pain. Like, no, it's just having okay, but that way, like any chemical reaction I do in a lab, also like, oh, there's some awareness because there's some
okay,
engagement
but
between the thing and
trees
the outside world.
share nutrients with their same species.
So do bacteria.
Well,
Okay.
again, I mean,
Like,
even
oh,
if we're
poor
just
bacteria.
coming from a
But-
totally selfish, totally speciesist view of it, I think there's great value to human society and individual humans to like take care of plants and to in general.
Yeah, but
do-
that's for
do
our
things.
sake. He's
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
actually genuinely caring
For the
plants,
plants.
for the right, as if it cares. It's
Hmm.
literally incapable of caring. So, like, what do
Okay.
If we got an AI
You're
though, Armin,
very spinal centric about that argument. Like it sounds like you only
Yes.
argue from
Well, because
a
people,
neurological point of view.
because things we need a spine for you to have a centralized nervous system for you to be able to
Well-
care about things.
I mean,
if-
there.
You need a.
Armin,
Yes.
I am.
if we could show that AI was correct and it could communicate with plants, and we started getting a bunch of bushes advocating for their rights
I
through
will
the
do
AI.
that with rocks as well. If AI could
If-
communicate with rock, I would care about anything.
Okay.
I would
No,
care about
that's-
rocks
that's
as well.
consistent. That's consistent.
The
That's fair.
biological
Yeah.
definition of life is anything that can self-replicate, and
Mhm.
so technically,
I don't care about
there's a
life. I
debate.
care about pain and happiness.
Okay.
I only care about life when it. I
Okay,
care
so
about
pain and happiness as only translated in your neurological framework, or can it be expanded to other chemical languages?
if it's any chemical languages, I literally have to cry over a rock falling off a cliff. Like,
I don't think so. From a rock's perspective, I don't think it would care because it's a literal
Yeah.
rock. It would just fall into a cliff and then be
you're like, oh, the plant is screaming in pain. Like, oh yeah, so is the rock when it hits the ground. Like, can you not hear that sound? That's the rock screaming. So
I
look
mean-
at the poor rock.
I'm sorry. I'm just being an asshole at this point.
Yes.
But yeah, no. So I guess the heart of what I'm getting to is understanding sapiens. So sapiens in our understanding is neurons talking to each other, and when the technology is advanced enough, can that be like expanded to, as we learn more, would it be like expanded to more? Because on the most fundamental level, our brains are neurons talking to each other with chemicals, and I'm just thinking about how that would be extrapolated in like a forest or
Okay,
like
yeah, technically it does. We don't really matter, okay, because our brain, like, if you want to step outside of it that far to look at it, like, oh, our pain and our happiness is also just chemical reactions, either. Okay, yes. So technically, it doesn't really matter, okay, but for us as humans, these things matter. We are wired to genuinely care for not just our happiness, but other entities capable of happiness as happiness and their misery as well, right? But I think like we have to draw a line for how we define that, like, or else we're gonna see ourselves crying over carrots, literally. All right,
Well,
like because we have to come up with a better, like, what do we define as pain and what do we define as happiness? If just because a plant is like sharing some chemical reactions in defense of itself, if we want to define that as like, oh, this carrot apparently care, like care, the things that we understand as caring or as happiness and sadness or misery are such complicated emotional reactions that requires a medium that is as complicated as a brain, okay, not just like an exertion of like this chemical into another plant from us, like that's that level of communication between plants over like danger or stuff like that is not at all close to the complications required for us to be able to have things like fear or
I understand
joy.
that. I'm talking about in like when technology gets advanced enough and we start networking these plants, fungi, bacterium, and animals together, and then creating an emergent intelligence from that.
That's not gonna happen.
And okay, fine, sure, that's a very boring answer, but sure. I mean, I think we should, because that would be interesting. But if you don't think that's gonna happen because you're boring, sure.
Okay. Okay, if your idea of fun and not being boring is fungi becoming intelligent, true emergence.
Can I just let me just say this real quick, Armin, and I'm not taking sides here. I'm just saying there is some really interesting fungus out there. There is. You would be surprised how
situation. Okay.
You would be surprised how much fungus exists in this world. It's a lot more than you think. Like
I know fungi is interesting. I just don't think I would be able to have an interesting conversation with one day. That's all I'm saying.
You don't think they would have
with AI, so you can create more interesting intelligence from it.
Yeah,
I do like the thought of like somebody standing there with like a I don't know, a bean plant and like a computer, and just the person going, "Hey, how's it going?" And then the plant just being like, "It's okay, it's a little bit hot." It's like, "Oh, do you want some water or some shade?" And the plant's like, "No, I'm okay." All right, well, see ya. Like, I do like that thought. That is hilarious to me.
Yeah, now I'm voting. Like, there's this something Benjamin Franklin wrote really slaps.
Okay. All right, guys, this is getting so absurd. We need to end the stream again. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you, Asian American, with your weird, bizarre takes. It's always fun to hear. All right, guys, we're gonna end the stream here. Bye. All right, guys, like and subscribe and hit the bell notification and leave a comment and let your friends and enemies know that this is the best stream ever, so they need to subscribe to this channel. All right.
Fact.
Okay. Fact. Yes. Bye.